Welcome to the NBA Carousel, brought to you by Sideline Sports in conjunction with Fantasy and Flavors. I'm your host, Megan Price, and we are now in the NBA Finals. Game 3 was played last night, and Phoenix's hope of a sweep were demolished with a 20-point loss to Milwaukee. The series is now 2-1, and Game 4 is in Milwaukee still. Will they be able to tie up the series, or will Phoenix be able to pull off a gentleman's sweep? Let's find out what our Phoenix and Milwaukee reps think. We have Jordan Long for Phoenix.
Hey, Megan.
Hey, Jordan, how are you?
I would be better if the Suns would have won last night,
absolutely.
But otherwise I'm good.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get Cole McCain for Milwaukee Bucks on here as well. Hey, Cole.
Hello, Megan and Jordan.
How you doing this evening?
Hey, cool.
I've been better if we didn't. Pretty good, but I've been better if we didn't blow game 2 and let Phoenix get up 2-0. Now we're only 1 win, so it happens.
Well, I have to say it was a great performance by you guys last night. I still wasn't extremely impressed with PJ Tucker, but the entire rest of the team played really well.
Well, I don't really care if you were impressed with PJ Tucker. I just care that they won.
Absolutely. No, Giannis had an absolutely astronomical performance with 41 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds. Then you had Middleton, who had 18 points. Holiday had 21 points. It was looking like the complete team that we've seen them be majority of the season. Jordan, let's talk about what happened with the Suns.
Well, I think you kind of hit it on the head. Giannis actually showed up, had 24 points in the paint. And for whatever reason, Devin Booker decided to have his worst game of the actual playoffs. He actually shot 21.4% in the game. And I have to credit the Bucks defense. They just made Devin Booker look ordinary. But the fact of the matter is we gave up too many points in the paint. And, of course, Giannis had 41 points in that game. Also, the rebounding. You look at the rebounding, and it was a big difference. They had 47 rebounds to 36 for the Suns. Also, I think Cool would actually agree with this was the run at the end of the first half. The Bucks went on a 30-9 run, and that was pretty much the game right there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I see in the second quarter, Milwaukee had 35 points and Phoenix had 17. That's a huge difference right there. And then you come back from the half and Milwaukee had 38 points in the third quarter and 31. Phoenix had 31 in the third quarter. So that's tough to come back from right there, especially when you're playing a team of that caliber. What do you think was the major factor, other than Booker's performance, what do you think was the major factor that led to this loss?
Well, besides the fact that we couldn't stop Giannis, it was our three-point shooting. The Bucks actually shot way better from three-point land. We couldn't do anything. Plus, they got to the line more. They were just more of the aggressive team. And I have to credit the fact that they got into it with their crowd. And we all know they didn't want to go down 3-0. There hasn't been a team that has gone down 3-0 in a series to come back and win. So they knew, and we knew, this was a much bigger game for them than it was for us.
Right, absolutely. Cool. Let's go ahead and talk about your side of it. What do you feel was the major factor in why you guys not only had a win, but you had a win by 20 points?
Well, I've kind of said all along, home games are important for both teams, right? That's why you fight to get the home court advantage. Right. I think back at home, you've seen what normally happens. A lot of role players for Milwaukee played better, not just offensively, but also defensively. They were more engaged. They had their home crowd. They were energized. Whereas a lot of role players for Phoenix and even the guys who had been scoring a lot of points for them just didn't have the same production. You look at Phoenix's guys. Chris Paul had 19 points, right? Cam Johnson has been a lot of talk about, Cam Johnson had this great performance. Carolina guy, so glad Cam had a decent game, but he only had 14 points. The high scorer was Chris Paul with the 19. Then you had Ayton only had 18 points. Bridges only had 4 points. He's a guy that, he's a bitch guy. So he's going to play different times. Cameron Payne, who'd been having a big series at home, only had 7 points. So you have some of those other guys that, as always goes in a series, they play better at home. Now they're on the road. You look at Milwaukee, Lopez gave you 11. You talked about Middleton and Holiday. You also got 11 out of Bobby Portis. Giannis had another second in a row 40-point game. So, it's one of those things where you're going to get a little bit more out of those guys when they're playing at home. And if Giannis can continue to put up games and again, there's no one on Phoenix that can stop Giannis. So for him not to do this, it's disappointing. So him doing this isn't, to me, like, oh, great, Giannis is putting up 35, 40 points. It's more like about time. This is what you need to do and what you should be doing all playoffs.
Agreed. But you know what? I feel like Giannis has had a great playoffs, actually. I felt like he showed up. There's been a few games that he struggled, and I think a lot of that sometimes with Giannis personally is a mental block. I think sometimes he is his biggest competition or, biggest enemy, because I think he gets in his head about certain things. Now, taking it back to the Sun side of it, you brought up Ayton, who you said only had 18 points. But I think something really important to note about that performance is 16 of those points were in the first half, but he played 33 minutes.
Yep.
For sure. They shut him down in the second half.
Absolutely. And then also, he only had 6 rebounds. And actually, he had 9 rebounds, excuse me. And so he had the highest amount of rebounds on the team, but nobody had double digits in rebounds. So like Jordan said, getting out rebounded is a big problem when you're in the finals. Yeah,
because Portis had 8. Middleton had 7 and Giannis had 13. So you had 3 people for the Bucks who, really dedicated themselves to getting rebounds. You even got 5 rebounds from Holiday as well. So you had, a concerted effort to get to the boards. And this is something that I don't understand why, but apparently for Milwaukee, they have to be down and go home to have these performances. So the concern, if you're a Milwaukee fan or you want Milwaukee to win, is I'm pretty confident that they'll win game 4, not like they did in game 3. But then you have to go back on the road.
Right.
You're going to have to win a game in Phoenix to win this series. So Correct. That's the concern with Milwaukee, and why it was very disappointing that Middleton and Drew Holiday decided to take game 2 off offensively.
Right. I definitely think that on the other side of this game kind of reminded me of Phoenix's previous series, Game 5 against the Clippers. It was just Phoenix is one of those good teams. Milwaukee's a great team too, but sometimes they don't have great performances. And so I think this is just an example of a good team having a rough game. And once again, like you said, game 4 is still going to be in Milwaukee. I do think that the Bucks come out and win this one. I agree with that. I think that they're going to win at home and they're going to run off of that fuel like that. But then you go back to Phoenix. Will Milwaukee be able to beat Phoenix in Phoenix? What do you think, Jordan?
I don't think that Milwaukee really has a shot in Phoenix just because we've played so well at home. But going back to game 4, I think this is a much bigger game for the Suns. You don't want to go back home, tied at 2-2. You want to have it 3-1. That way you have a chance to win it at home. But the fact of the matter is for whatever reason, you just, like you said, this is a reminder of the Clippers game. I was so confident that they'd actually win in LA, and they didn't, or at home, and then had to go back to LA and they lost that and then had to go back home. You don't want to go back home tied at 2. You really want to go up 3-1 and actually have a stranglehold. But we've seen teams that have had a 3-1 series lead, like the Golden State Warriors not too long ago with LeBron James when they played the Cleveland Cavaliers when LeBron was on that team and blew it. So I don't want to have it as a best 2 out of 3. I really want to go back home with a 3-1 series lead.
And so what do you think needs to happen in order for you guys to win one in Milwaukee?
Well, besides the fact that we're playing on the road, is if you look at the game, it was really the points in the paint. And that was more on Giannis. They had 54 points in the paint. We only had 40, so we have to be a little bit more aggressive in the paint. We were doing fine on rebounding, except for the fact that we got out-rebounded, but we can't have them have second-chance points. We have to be the more aggressive team. Go to the free throw line because that's where we've excelled, especially with Booker and Chris Paul. But we also have to get our three-point shooting going. We have to stop them from shooting three-pointers, and we have to play better perimeter defense as well as inside defense. I don't know if we go to a zone, but then again, if you go to a zone, that opens up the perimeter. I think you just have to find a way to stop Giannis, and we haven't been able to do that in these finals as well as in regular season. So it's going to be a tough task. I think we need more production from DeAndre Ayton.
I absolutely agree. And last week we talked about that Chris Paul might have sustained a hand injury. Do you think that played in a factor in this game's performance, or do you think you guys just got outplayed?
We got outplayed, simply put. I mean, with Devin Booker shooting 21.4%, that can't happen. The whole team just kind of fell apart. And I got to give credit to the Milwaukee Bucks. But the fact of the matter is that I don't think – Chris Paul will even say it himself, I don't think the injury is really affecting him. Maybe it is in terms of his looking to see where he's going to shoot from, but I don't think the injuries really has that much of a factor on why we lost.
Okay. And last week, we talked quite a bit at length about Budenholzer. Do you feel like he redeemed himself in this game?
No.
No, okay.
I don't think there was really any change to substitutions or anything. The guys played harder because the guys didn't want to lose. I don't really feel like Budenholzer does change much. It's more so when we're at home again, he's doing the same things. It's just that they're working better because we're at home. He can redeem himself by winning a game in Phoenix. That's where he needs to redeem himself at.
Oh, completely understandable. Okay, so let's say worst case scenario for either one of your teams. Let's say that you end up not winning the finals. What moves do you need to make in the off season to regroup and come back next season? Because not like you went out the season and you have to really completely rebuild. I mean, you made it to the finals. You either won a game or a couple of games, and it wasn't quite enough. What adjustments do you think would need to be made?
Well,
I'll go first. Well, I would say, honestly, the big question is Chris Paul going to come back? He has that player option. He's probably going to utilize it to get out. Is he going to come back to Phoenix? We already know we have a championship caliber team, even without Chris Paul, because if you look at last year, we missed the playoffs by one game. So if worst case scenario, Paul goes away, we're going to need to find somebody to actually veteran free agent to bring in at point guard. But otherwise, we don't need much. We'll just, even if Chris Paul decides to sign back with the Phoenix Suns, I think he wants a ridiculous amount of money. I think he wants like 3 or 4 more years. I can't remember the exact amount, but we would actually have to bring in another veteran, either that or we have to get bigger inside.
Okay. And so you think if you guys lose, you think Chris Paul's out?
I don't know if he's really going to be out, but how many more chances is he going to get a ring? Will he go to, let's say, the LA Lakers? I'm just using that example because they've got Anthony Davis. They have LeBron James. They have a championship caliber team. Could he go somewhere in the East, like the Brooklyn Nets? I really don't know. I expect that even if he opts out, we will get something done with Chris Paul because he's really excelled with Devin Booker. And Booker was an all-star, but his play has definitely excelled. And I would hate to lose Chris Paul if that was the worst-case scenario.
Right. Well, you know what? I think he's gelled with you guys so much, though. Like, it never really crossed my mind that Chris Paul probably wouldn't retire his son. I think he's your guy. Like, I think he's with you guys. But like you brought up, he wants a certain amount of money because of not only who he is, but the caliber of play that he brings and the knowledge that he brings. And do you want to risk that at his age?
And that's the $1 million question that I can't answer. I mean, I've heard that, I'm going to use this as an example. I don't see him going to Denver, but let's say he goes to Denver. Could he excel the Denver Nuggets to a championship caliber team? Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, I think he likes Phoenix. I think the fact that, like you just said, he gelled with the team. I don't think he wants to go anywhere else. But again, it all depends on the money and the contract. We know this would be a business decision.
Okay. And cool. Same question to you.
So what I'd like for Milwaukee to do is go out and get some scorers, some guys who can score and play defense. Veteran guys or even young guys. Use your draft pick on a guy that maybe doesn't handle the ball well. He has some deficiencies in his game, but if he can play defense and he can put the ball in the bucket, bring him in, get him in the rotation, and help him develop those skills that are needed. I think as far as free agents, everybody's pretty much locked in as far as the core. We'll get DiVincenzo back next year from his injury, right. So that'll help because that's a big piece that we're missing. But I think some length that can defend and score on their own is something that would help Milwaukee. Guys to bolster the bench at this point because you have your starters are your starters. DiVincenzo would move back into the starting lineup. If PJ Tucker were to return, he would then go back to the bench because that was, essentially DiVincenzo's spot until he got hurt. So I think you have everybody locked up as your starters, maybe bringing in one or two more guys that, are 3-and-D or a slasher and a scorer and a defender and maybe another shooter and a good defender, because I think those are the real pieces that Milwaukee would need, win or lose, to try to either defend or get back, next season. Because, we've out-rebounded the Suns by 6 rebounds a game, in the finals. We're about even on steals. They've had more turnovers a game. They've had 12 turnovers a game. We've only had about 10. As far as field goal percentage goes, they're slightly up about 1.5 points. As far as 3-point percentage, they're at 38.1. We're at 37.9. So those are, pretty even. And then, of course, the category where they're really ahead of is free throw percentage.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because Phoenix is shooting 85% and we're shooting 67%. So one more piece to add, guys that can make free throws as well.
I've heard a lot of talk lately about Colin Sexton. Is that somebody you would be interested in on y'all's lineup?
So the thing with Colin Sexton that I think would make him not a good fit for this team is he's a guy who's going to want to play. He's not going to be happy with 15 to 20 minutes a game behind Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. And that's pretty much what you're looking for, right? Because you just signed Drew Holiday to a long-term deal. Giannis just signed to a long-term deal. Chris Middleton signed long-term. So you have those guys signed. So you're looking for really at this point pieces to put around them that possibly in 3 or 4 years could blossom into taking maybe the point guard role from Holiday, or, depending on how Middleton is by the time his contract's over, maybe stepping into that role. But guys that would be fine with being on the bench, either being groomed or just understanding that they're a role player at this point. So I wouldn't say Colin Sexton would be a good fit because of that. But if he's willing to come in, take less money and play on the bench, then sure, why not?
Do you have anybody in mind that you think could fill that role pretty well?
So I was thinking about it. I'm not sure who is actually going to be free agents as far as it goes, but I know the type of player, but not really a face that I know is going to be a free agent that I can put to it. But an example of a guy, let's say he was a free agent that would be perfect, would be like a Danny Green, like that type of player.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so let's take it on the other side. Best case scenario, you win the series, right? What do you plan to carry on to the next season? Because this is an abnormal season, an abnormal finals for everybody. And so, or not abnormal finals, but I think the result is not what a lot of people expected. I knew Phoenix was going to be good. I knew Milwaukee was good, but I don't think a lot of people knew that we weren't going to see LeBron or Steph or a certain amount of people, certain amount of stars in the playoffs. And we didn't see that this year. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be making adjustments. A lot of people are going to be coming back off injury. So what do you do to maintain how well you guys have performed this season?
Well, I'll go first for this one, Jordan. So I think the big thing would be we have 2 guys on the team that are going to be going to the Olympics, in Middleton and Holiday.
Okay.
I know Jordan has Booker. They'll be going as well. So the thing is making sure those guys stay healthy. So if possible, maybe, hey, can we try to limit minutes and rotate people better so we can try to keep all the guys healthy? Because the most important thing is them not getting injured. Because if they have Booker out for any amount of time, that could be negative for them, as well as if we have Holiday or Middleton out. For us, any extended amount of time to start the season due to getting injured, playing for Team USA. So I think that's a big thing for both teams, but specifically for Milwaukee. Just the same things I was talking about, just adding pieces to go around those guys. If someone comes available in trade, if there's a guy like maybe Megan's favorite Milwaukee Buck and PJ Tucker that maybe is no longer on the team, we're able to bring someone else in to maybe, take those dollars and fill that spot. I don't see them having a lot of money to be able to pay some of the more expensive guys, but just being able to bring some guys in to fill those holes, help with the offense, help with the defense, guys that are confident they can make their shots. The drive so much is not on Giannis every game, so he can afford to have an off game and still have the opportunity for us to be able to win games and play well.
Awesome. Oh, Jordan, same question to you.
So if we were to win, I mean, you look at the West and people are going to say, oh, this was a down year because of the fact that, there hadn't been a lot of time to play, and you talked about injuries, but the West is still stacked with the Lakers, with the Nuggets, with the Clippers. We're still going to be up there, especially if Chris Paul ends up staying with us. I just think that the fact of the matter is if we win, we'll be fine. We could add a couple of pieces, especially with down low. We could get a big man. I don't know what free agents are going to be out there, but it will be sweet to actually win the championship if we are able to and do it with Chris Paul. Even though that people are going to say, oh, what about the Lakers being hurt, the Nuggets being hurt? It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is whoever wins this championship, whether it's going to be the Bucks or us, you're still going to be NBA championships. Whether or not people are going to see that, it doesn't matter. You're still going to raise the banner.
Absolutely. And I will say this, either one of you guys' team was in second or third the entire season. So it's not like there was a point in time where you guys had to climb up to the top. Y'all, both teams were at the top the entire season. So in my opinion, very well earned, and injuries happen every season. Now this season was a little bit different, but it's still completely earned, and both you guys earned that position here. So cool, you brought up Team USA, and I know this is a little off topic as far as the NBA Finals, but
I know where this is going.
What is your reaction to the loss to Nigeria?
Well, as I just talked about, there's three important guys that are not there. So I think that's a part of it, but also as well, I mean, we have a lot of people that opted out, and there's certain players that there's been a lot of talk that there should have been other people in their places. I'm not going to just call any names, but there's certain people, and actually, I feel like there's actually more than one. A lot of people like to focus on one. I think there's a couple of guys there that other guys should be there over. And when you have that happen, and you don't really bring, and I understand guys like LeBron, Anthony Davis, Jimmy Butler, guys that were hurt a part of most of the season, decided to step away and not play just so they can get healthy for the team. Right. But I think you really have to put together the best 12-man roster that you can, and not we want to have this guy on, we want to have this guy on, we want to have this guy on. You have to really put together a roster to beat other teams around the world, because at the end of the day, the NBA is becoming a global sport. So other countries are starting to catch up. There's not a dream team gap anymore. So you can't go out there with the team that we put out there before the Redeem team again. Just you throw a bunch of guys on the team and say, hey, let's go win. You actually have to put a quality team out there with the best available guys. And I don't think Team USA did that. I think there was a couple of questionable decisions that could come back to burn us in the Olympics. Hopefully the additions that'll be coming with the three guys that are in the series now will help out. Booker can get it cooking pretty good. Middleton at times can, and Holiday should help defensively. So hopefully those additions will help, but you just have to put the best team out there. And I don't think we did that this year, and hopefully we still win, but that's a big concern for me.
And Jordan, what are your thoughts?
For me, it's it's an exhibition game, and luckily this isn't the medal round. This isn't group play. I think honestly, this is a good thing for Team USA. You lost by 3 to Niagara that you're supposed to beat, and the fact of the matter is you don't want to have this happen, let's say in the medal round, to, lose gold. I think Greg Popovich even said, this is a good loss for us. We have to stay focused. We have to play better. I think that the fact of the matter is these are just exhibitions. I'm not going to overreact to it. Yes, it's a great win by Niagara, but the fact of the matter is we're going to continue to gel. Like Cool said, we have people missing. This is not our best team, but I still think it's good enough to go out there and actually medal. Whether that is gold, we all know the standard is gold. Even if they come home with a silver medal, it will be disappointing, but it still will be a medal. That's what we have to realize.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Cool.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, we're talking about USA basketball. If we don't get a gold medal, we don't even have a medal, right? We don't celebrate silver or bronze in the U.S. for basketball. We are the basketball country. Right. We have the best players in the world. Most of them are from the U.S. There are guys on other teams, and that's going to happen, but most of the best players in the world are in the U.S. The 12, I'll even say the 15 to 20 best players, 12 of those guys should be out there. And I think there's a couple of examples of where they're not out there, and those could hurt once they get deeper and start to face these teams that are going to have 3 or 4 guys that are also NBA players. I would agree it's an exhibition, but at the end of the day, this is the 3rd time ever that I think we've lost an exhibition game. So that's not something that, you want to kind of put out in the universe like, hey, Nigeria beat Team USA. We can beat Team USA. You kind of want to just smack everybody in the face and continue to do so. That's what we do in basketball.
Like the women's team. No, just joking.
Exactly.
One question, last week they came out and said that there's not going to be any crowds because they've had another COVID outbreak there. So do you think that's going to affect not only basketball, but do you think that's going to affect the rest of the Olympics? Not having fans.
It could. I mean, it could, because we've seen basketball where they feed off the crowd, and I've seen events like gymnastics, even the swimming, they feed off the crowd. But at the end of the day, these are world-class athletes. They can do it without crowds, with crowds. This is their moment to shine. They know everybody's going to be watching. Millions of people around the world are going to be watching. So whether or not they were going to have crowds or not, now that I know that they're not, I don't think it affects them that much. Right.
Well, you know what I think was an interesting point, Cool, that you had was that basketball is becoming a global sport. Like in the WNBA, while our roster is fantastic, you have Liz Cambridge that's going to be playing for Australia. You have several ladies that are actually playing for their home country. It looks like all 3 Agumake sisters are going to be playing for Nigeria. So. There's I think there's more international interest, not only in the NBA, but the WNBA. And so it's become more of an international sport. So, Luka is playing for his Serbia. Is that correct? Yeah. Luka's playing for Serbia. Is Joker playing for his country?
No, he's not playing.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say, as far as I know, he's not.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah.
Okay. So, I think that changes the dynamic a little bit. But I mean, I love having international players. Just being a Spurs fan, that was just kind of our gig anyway. So, but I think Team USA is going to be okay. I think they're still going to come out on top, but it's not going to be the easy road that they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, you got to watch. I think personally for me, there are events that the fans will make a difference. I think soccer is one that everybody's not really thinking about. That's a big event where the crowds make a big difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Basketball to an extent, baseball, another one. So there are going to be some sports where not having the crowd is going to be difficult because the energy, right? If you're playing soccer, you can play 100 minutes and have 1 goal, right? So you got to kind of keep your energy up. You got to be ready. You got to be focused on what to do. It could come down to penalty shots. It could come down to, extra time, that gets put back on because of stoppage, anything. So you kind of have to be ready. And I think that's a sport that's going to miss the crowds a lot. Like I said, baseball, basketball, as Jordan said, swimming is a huge one as well. So there'll be some sports. But again, it does kind of level the playing field. It's kind of like the bubble, right? It's essentially a Olympic bubble. So you just don't have the crowds. Maybe they'll pump in some crowd noise, who knows? And it'll be difficult, but it'll be still kind of even. It'll be level because no one will have crowd noise. So it won't be like certain countries will and certain countries won't. So I think it will affect some. It may affect the quality of the play, but I don't think it'll really stop a team from winning or cause a team to lose.
I agree, completely agree. So back to the NBA Finals, we have Game 4 is going to be Wednesday at 9 Eastern. Game 5 is going to be Saturday at 9 Eastern as well. Game 6, if needed, will be Tuesday. So I look forward to talking to you guys next week. We may or may not have a champion by then, but go ahead and you said we won't. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, where they can follow you, and we will definitely, it'll either be a wrap-up show or almost a wrap-up show next week. Cool, you go first, and Jordan, you second.
Well, next week will not be a wrap-up show. It'll be an almost wrap-up show because the Bucks won't have won the championship yet.
I love it.
But you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Cool McCain. Of course, here on Monday nights, Thursday nights on the Sip Off at 8:15, I believe. And Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, playcallersportstalk.com.
All right, Jordan, you?
You can obviously find me here on the NBA Carousel every Mondays. You can find me on Twitter at SportsScoop1, and I write my own blog Monday through Fridays at sports-scoop.com.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see y'all next week.